Welcome friends. So far in this course we have discussed various aspects of innovation. We discussed how to market innovation. We discussed how to build business models on your innovation, how to diffuse innovation, how to scale up your innovation. But there are always possibilities that you innovate and somebody else may take the benefit of it. You put your minds in getting new ideas, developing prototypes, developing business models on those ideas, but people beyond your reach, they take your benefit. And therefore, now we are going to discuss about very popular terms which are known as intellectual property rights. We all must have heard about a term known as patent, which is one type of intellectual property right. So, in this session and in this week, we will discuss various types of intellectual property rights, how to create those rights, what are the myths related to these things, and how to leverage, how to create wealth with the help of your intellectual property. So, in this session, we first start with three very common terms which are available in our academic discussion, and soon you will also understand that though these terms look similar, but there are differences in these terms, and these are intellectual capital, intellectual assets and intellectual property. And we see that how we move from intellectual capital to intellectual assets, and then finally we create intellectual property based on those assets. Now, the very first term, which is intellectual capital. Earlier we used to talk, whenever we discuss anything related to intellectual, it means patents only. But slowly and slowly we all have realized that we are moving from a different kind of environment of wealth creation, which was initially linked to your land, which was mostly agriculture. Then your plant and machinery came into picture and you started creating wealth using manufacturing facilities. Nowadays we see we create wealth because of our knowledge. In India particularly, we know that large contribution of the development of Indian economy is coming from the IT sector, and IT sector is a very vibrant example of knowledge dominant industry. So, slowly and slowly, not only in India but globally, we see that we are moving to knowledge based economy. Knowledge has become the most important tool for wealth creation, and therefore we start talking of these terms intellectual capital, intellectual assets and intellectual property, because the word intellectual means the power of your mind, and power of your mind is also representing a form of property. Earlier the meaning of property was considered with only the tangible assets, but nowadays in the present circumstances we consider intangible assets are also equally powerful, and therefore we are going to discuss intellectual capital, intellectual assets and intellectual properties as the important form of the knowledge dominant economic development. So, now the first important term which is available to us, that is intellectual capital. Now, intellectual capital is the sum total of all knowledge available in the organization. Whatever complete knowledge set is available in an organization, that is known as intellectual capital. So, the knowledge resides, what is the place where knowledge resides? The knowledge resides within the minds of your employees. Your employees, they are the storehouse of the knowledge, and as an organization I need to leverage this knowledge to create wealth. So, that is very important part for any organization, and therefore, you can relate this discussion to concepts like TQM, to concepts like workers' participation in management, to concepts like empowering your employees, so that the knowledge which is residing in the minds of your employees can be leveraged to create wealth. So, that is the simple idea about this concept of intellectual capital. We need to recognize, the first important thing is, we need to recognize that all employees in my organization, they are keeping some kind of knowledge and therefore, we need to leverage that knowledge for the benefit of the organization. So, this is the first important thing in intellectual capital, that it is the sum total of all the knowledge which is there in the organization. Now, to express this concept of intellectual capital in simple words, you can understand that intellectual capital is what is left of an enterprise after it has been stripped of all its tangible assets such as land, building, machinery, inventory and cash. So, intellectual capital is equal to value of firm minus the sale proceed or the proceeds of tangible assets. So, now I have a company and I want to sell that company to somebody else. Now, the value of the company which I expect is let us say 1000 crore rupees, and out of 1000 crore rupees the cost of land, plant, machinery and the raw material which is there, the finished material which is there, the work in process material which is there, or cash available in the accounts, accounts receivable, that all accounts for 500 crore rupees. The value of the firm is 1000 crore rupees, 500 crore rupees is the value of all these tangible assets. So, the value of intellectual capital is 500 crore rupees. Now, you see more and more such type of transaction are happening, because this is very important for all the young entrepreneurs to understand. We are developing a new startup, we take this startup to a particular level and then we want to exit from that startup, and when we are leaving that startup, when we are exiting from the startup, so we are actually selling that startup to some bigger organization, and when we are selling that startup to a bigger organization, this is what the value of the firm. And in this case normally, because these startups are IT based startups, so you will not have much physical or tangible assets, you will not have land, machinery and other kind of inventory and cash etc. So, most of the value in normal cases it can have a significant proportion of tangible assets, but nowadays in the current scenario the valuation of startups is mostly because of their intellectual capital. So, traditional organizations, we can say to some extent that the component of out of these two, the intellectual component and the tangible part of the valuation of the firm, the proportion of tangible part was more. But nowadays, as we are moving into knowledge based economy, and in the current scenario of startups, you will see examples all around us, that these examples are full of intellectual capital valuation. So, the tangible part is much less and non-tangible part, intangible part is much higher. So, therefore, the intellectual capital becomes very, very important, that how much intellectual capital an organization possesses. So, what it includes? Intellectual capital, it includes knowledge and skills of employees. So, your employees are skillful, they are knowledgeable in a particular technology. So, that is the first important source of your intellectual capital. Then the processes, ideas, designs, inventions, technologies used by the organization, that is another important component of your intellectual capital. Now, other important thing of intellectual capital, and for some of the organization this becomes a very important part of their valuation, the relationship organization has developed with its customers on one side and its suppliers on the other side. So, that relationship, because the kind of relationship firm develops, that is very, very important, because your success is always dependent on your relations with your vendors and your customers. Nowadays, the environment is so complex that no organization can say that I am successful because of me alone. Rather, the success is always attributed to team, and in this case team includes your suppliers and your customers. So, therefore, what type of relationship the firm has developed over a period of time with suppliers and customers, that is also a very important source of intellectual capital, and this gives a lot of valuation to the organizations. Then it also includes the softwares, business methods, the manuals, the reports, the publications and databases available with the organization. So, all these things are the components, elements of your intellectual capital. So, that is one very important thing, because this is going to give you the value of the organization. More intellectual capital you possess, higher the value you will have of your organization. Now, how this intellectual capital is created? The process of creation is very important, because if you see, I have some knowledge, I am in IIT, I have some knowledge that how to teach in a class, and I have a very high ranking teacher in the organization, and all students love my classes. But this knowledge that how to teach effectively to a class of 100 students may become totally irrelevant, for a manufacturing organization, where I need to supervise at the shop floor level. So, the intellectual capital of one organization may not be having any kind of value to other organization. So, point is that the intellectual capital is directly related to the purpose and strategy of the organization. Otherwise, I may have lot of information, and then it may become a kind of noise, because if it is not matching with the requirement of my organization, if it is not matching with the strategy of my organization, so whatever information I possess, that is a kind of noise, information noise I can say. But if that information is matching with the purpose, with the strategy, then this information becomes knowledge, and this knowledge is your intellectual capital. Otherwise, we all may have different kind of information. If I am in a factory which is producing turbines, now if I know lot of things about game of cricket, if I know lot of data about football, so my company which is producing turbines and I have lot of statistics available with me, I remember all the records of Sachin Tendulkar, I remember all the records of Brian Lara, I remember all the records of Virat Kohli, but that is information noise as far as my company is concerned. So, but if I am in a sports company, if I am into sports, so same information becomes the knowledge. So, I need to see that whether the information which is available with the employees, this is in line with the strategy and purpose of the organization, then only this information becomes intellectual capital, otherwise it will not. Therefore, intellectual capital is very much information specific, and not only information specific, this is organizational specific. The intellectual capital of one organization, which is very high intellectual capital for this organization, may not have any value for a different organization. So, you need to understand that your knowledge, your information is matching with the strategy and very objective of the organization or not. Then we come to the second important term, that is intellectual assets. Now, intellectual assets is related to intellectual capital. As we discussed that intellectual capital is something, the knowledge which is in the minds of the employees. Now, you know, every evening your employees are leaving the organization, they are going to their houses, they are going to their place of stay, and next morning they come back. Now, there is always a risk associated, whether a particular employee will come tomorrow or not. If he or she comes, then that capital is coming back to your organization. But if that employee does not come back next morning, so that capital is not coming back to your organization. So, therefore, we need to convert intellectual capital into intellectual assets, so that the leaving of employee, or sometime even you can fire some employee if the employee is not fitting into the schemes of your organization, employee is not behaving in the order of your organization, then you may need to fire some employees. And in this case, if that employee is fired, if that employee is leaving the organization on his own, in both the cases you will lose intellectual capital. So, now we need to think that how to develop assets on that intellectual capital. So, what we are saying, that intellectual assets are intellectual capital that is identified, documented and available to be shared and replicated within the organization. The important thing is that whatever capital is available with individuals, now you start creating documents of those capital. You are developing reports, you are developing manuals, you are trying to create those manuals so that it can be shared, it can be distributed to other employees, employees of other units of your organization, so that you can actually take benefit even if employee is not with you. In that case, the capital remains with you. So, therefore, the intellectual capital becomes intellectual assets when you are documenting it, when you are replicating it, when you are sharing that document with the other employees, so you are starting leveraging the capital. So, that is intellectual assets. Now, because as I just mentioned, the organization does not own any employee. Employees do come on their will and employees can leave on their will. So, no organization, unless until you follow the system of bonded labours, which is not possible in the present environment. So, no organization can say that I own my employees. So, employees are free birds, they may come, they may go, but the organization does own the intellectual assets they create while a part of the organization. So, whatever knowledge, skill these employees have developed, whatever capital these employees have developed as part of your organization, organization certainly has a right on that capital, and therefore, the concept of intellectual assets came into picture. Now, what is the process of creation of intellectual assets? So, we call it as intellectual capital management process. So, that for creating intellectual assets, with the help of this process, we are creating intellectual assets. Now, first thing is search out. You search that what type of knowledge, what type of information is available with employees. So, that is the first step, scanning of your employees' minds. So, you have well defined tools that how do we deploy this kind of scanning tools. Once you have scanned, you have identified that what knowledge is available, what type of information is available. Maybe for an example, that your marketing guy of your company, that marketing guy has knowledge, he has huge database of various customers which he or she has developed over a period of time, and in that database that employee knows that what are the typical behavioral issues with different customers. Like for an example, I am a marketing manager of company like Lumex, which is making illumination solutions for various automobile manufacturers. Now, I am supplying my products to Maruti, I am supplying to Tata Motors, I am supplying to Hyundai, and in those companies I interact with a particular purchase manager. Now, these purchase managers or the requirements of the companies, something are well defined, but something are not properly spelt out. You know with your experience that what are the expectations of these customers. So, this type of knowledge is available with that marketing manager. So, you need to identify that how to document, how to capture this knowledge which is available with this marketing manager. So, that is the identification that yes, there is a special knowledge, special information available with this marketing manager regarding typical behavioral issues of various purchase managers of different organizations. And then you start capturing those knowledge. You create templates, you create some kinds of forms where these employees write about various information which is available with them. Then you properly document them so that it becomes a kind of manual or something like that. So, that is the documentation process. Once you have documented, because different types of knowledge for one particular issue, that the behavior of your important customer. So, different marketing managers may be handling different customers and they all will give their inputs with respect to this idea about the behavioral issues of your important customers. So, then you make one index so that it is easy to search for that database, and then you store that so that it is available at a common location from where all your other employees can retrieve this knowledge. Now it has become the knowledge. So other employees which can use this available document, so you store it in your, normally earlier we used to have files which are kept confidentially in the central repository of the organization, but nowadays because of internet, because of IT solutions available in the organizations, we keep all these type of documents at our server for easy access across the organization. Then we keep augmenting, we keep improving those documents with more and more knowledge regularly coming into that, and we try to make replication, we try to leverage this intellectual asset for the creation of more wealth out of it. So that is the replication. If some knowledge is available from some of the marketing manager, so we try to replicate those processes, we try to create more such type of examples so that we have more and more successful cases with us. So that is the process of replication, or that is the process of increasing the number of your customers. So these are different steps in the process of intellectual capital management process, and finally when we are doing all these things, we are converting actually our intellectual capital into intellectual assets. So here it is intellectual capital, and finally when you are replicating, it becomes intellectual assets. So that is a very simple process, but it is important that we should have a very regular system of converting our intellectual capital into intellectual assets, because if a potential employee, if one employee which is possessing huge amount of information, because all employees, I believe, they have huge amount of potential. So if any employee is leaving the organization without helping us in creating the intellectual assets, so that is a big loss for the organization. That much capital we are losing, and as a pure businessman, as a student of business management, we should be very, very careful that we should always add on our capital, never lose the capital. So therefore it is very important that we should be able to develop intellectual assets regularly from our intellectual capital. Then the third important type of term is intellectual property. Now intellectual property is something which you have protected, you created, you have intellectual capital. Intellectual capital is now converted into intellectual assets, but anybody can take your asset. So now you want somebody to guard your assets. So that is the purpose of protection. So when we are protecting our intellectual assets, that is intellectual property. So intellectual property is intellectual assets that are protected under applicable laws. So different governments, different countries, they have different rules, regulations under which we protect our intellectual assets. As I mentioned in the beginning of this session, patent is a very popular type of intellectual property right, and we all use that word very commonly, or you can say as a synonym of intellectual property right. If you talk to a layman, so for that layman, IPR and patents can be used interchangeably, but we will see that there are various other types of intellectual property rights. According to WIPO, which is World Intellectual Property Organization, and according to them, intellectual property refers to creations of the mind such as inventions, literary and artistic works, designs, symbols, names, images used in business. So, that is intellectual property as defined by the global body which is governing the research, development and all activities related to intellectual property domain, that is WIPO. So, in our next sessions we will discuss in more detail that what are the different types of IP. There are two important types, industrial property and copyrights, which we will discuss in detail in next to next session, where we are going to discuss only types of IPR. So, with this we come to end of this session. Thank you very much.